Computer. Okay. Yay, you're here. Oh my gosh. Thank you. This is like crazy. I
Yeah.
thought I'd have to wait around for you, but that's amazing. Um,
Oh, I don't leave anybody waiting, Annie. I am on time, always.
have you always been on time?
I'm like early.
You're early.
Yes,
Where did that
I'm
come from?
early. What's that? Where's
How
that
did
come
that
from?
get instilled? Did you get in trouble for not being on time, so therefore you are on time, or mom and dad?
No, my parents have always been on time people,
Hmm.
and it drives me nuts when people are late.
Yeah.
So where
What
that
kind of
comes
like,
from, I don't know, but yeah, I
yeah.
can't stand being late. I mean, so living in LA, as you
Yeah.
know, is hard because sometimes you really can't control being late, and I've been a
Yeah.
lot later since living here.
So
Um,
how do you manage that?
I leave earlier.
No, of course, but like how
Yeah.
much earlier? Of course, you leave earlier, but
Yeah, I leave earlier, but then I end up sometimes still being super early because the traffic is fine. And then I'm one of those people who's like sitting outside like early for an event or a party or a dinner, like just by myself. But it's fine. It's better than being late.
so it's one of your high values is to be
Yeah,
ahead.
I think it's just like respect for whoever you're meeting. I mean, it's different if it's like a party and it's open ended and it just is
Mhm.
from this time to this time. But I think if you're meeting a friend for dinner, I mean, work related things, like you can't be late. Like that's just
Mhm.
not acceptable. Obviously traffic concerns and stuff, but yeah,
Yeah.
to me it's very important.
Dang, girl. I was late dropping my kid off today, and I get one of those little like notes of shame where you have to like walk through the, principal's office. Are your kids ever late for school?
What's that?
Are your kids late? Who does the drop off?
No, no one's ever late. We're always early.
No, it's late.
Yeah.
I
We're
thought you
not.
and I could be friends. I'm not sure you're gonna like me very much.
Yeah,
No,
no, I
professional stuff, yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
But
you
here's
have
the
to.
thing.
You have
There's
to.
no judgment for people who are running late because plenty of my friends are late for drop off and stuff. And it depends. Some schools like preschool, there's like a
Mhm.
window. But in elementary school, there's like, this
No
is when
window.
school starts.
Yeah, yeah.
So regardless, even when we have the optional window, we're always early, but that's also partially because I have to get to work. Also my husband, I have to get to work, but
Yeah, yeah. He can't be late for sure. And so therefore you both like that. What a great synergistic thing because you both have that in you. That works really well, right? Because you both have to.
yeah, he doesn't like being late either, but he also thinks that sometimes I'm too early and that I like will will like need to go someplace that's like 5 minutes away from our house and 30 minutes before I'm like, all right, let's go. And he's like, it's literally gonna take us 2 minutes to drive there.
Uh-huh.
We don't need to leave right now. And I was like, you don't know what parking is gonna be like. And so it's totally partially my type A-ness. It's partially that I have just like I'm just an anxious person and I'm like, we gotta go, do it, do
Oh,
it.
so it's the underneath is anxiety about.
Oh, for sure.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
like the feeling of being rushed
Hmm.
and feeling yeah, I don't like the feeling of being late or rushed. It drives
So
me.
what happens when you're rushed? Do you spiral into performance? Like,
It's just the feeling of like not being there when I'm supposed to. I mean, it's like
uh
I don't know. This is turning into a therapy session or
oh,
something.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Yeah. So it's just like it's not worth it to make myself feel that way.
Hmm.
Like I've learned enough in my years. Like why make yourself if something gives you anxiety, if
Hmm.
something stresses you out, if you can prevent it, because you can't prevent everything in life that's going to
Hmm.
bother you, but if you can prevent it, why not prevent it? Some people don't care about being late. Some people don't care about feeling rushed, and that's fine. Like some people thrive off of it. I don't thrive off of it.
Hmm.
I thrive off of just being there and doing
What do
what I need
you,
to do.
but it's more than that. It's more than just being there. What is it that you thrive off of then? Because it has to be more of a payoff than just that I'm being here. Is it that you serve higher, that you can
Yeah, just
enjoy, that you could be present? Like,
yeah, exactly. I just can be more myself. I'm not consumed with the feeling of feeling rushed or late or stressed, and then I can relax. I think that's it too. I'm very easily distracted by things if something is off, and so I will let it like clutter my thinking. But if everything else is fine, then I can focus and I can like be my best self. I think is really what it is.
yeah. I just rushed upstairs to my office. I didn't even, I just put the screen on because I'm like looking at your face
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm talking to you.
Oh, I know that's not.
I'm gonna just take that off because that's crooked, and I'm gonna because your eyes gonna twitch. Um, this is my daughter's like 3 year.
Oh, I love it.
It's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I think that's fascinating because I'm a procrastinator and tried everything. Like I cannot get so prepared, and I think that is, it's a liability, 100%. And someone said something to me, and they said, "No, you're just a last minute genius." And I kind of like, oh, that's a good way of reframing it. But at the same time, I also really hate it. You get to that place where you're just like, damn it, I did it again. Damn it, I did it again. So
Yeah.
you have that ability of self-awareness to be early. So was that from childhood? Like always early, or did it be like, or was it like, you know what? I noticed that when I came home, I was anxious, because I was late. Like what kind of stuff, where did that come in?
I don't know, but one thing though, I'm not early for everything. Like I definitely, we just happen to be talking about showing up for things.
Yeah.
There are things I procrastinate. Like I need to I have a photo book that I need to make for my parents for Christmas, and I could have just worked on it all year. I could have slowly put in photos in a book all
Yeah.
year, but no, every year, literally December, whatever date it is, here I am trying to find all the photos from the entire year put together. I'm sure other people are dealing with that too, but it's not so it's not everything. But those things also have finite deadlines. Something like that I might have pushed off, there's still a finite deadline. If I want to get this book made for my parents for Christmas, there's a deadline that I need to send it so it can print and it can arrive to them. So like what you're talking about in terms of putting things off, I think it just depends on if there are finite deadlines and if you end up getting it done. Because if you're one of those people that still gets the work done,
Mm-hmm.
and you feel fine from doing it last minute, then it's fine. It's really only if it bothers you, in my mind. Like you shouldn't feel disappointed in the way that you handle it if the way that you handle it, like it fuels you. Like for example, in high school, I don't know, like, back when we used to study back in high school, there are the people
Wait,
who
I actually, and I should have looked this up. There's a very small detail, but how old are you? Because I feel like I'm older
I'm
than that.
40.
Oh, okay, 45. Okay, got it. So totally, because I always love your,
Wait, you're 45?
yeah, I always
Whoa,
love your music
girl.
selection. And I was like, oh, we've got to be around. I knew.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
girl, yes, girl, yes.
But in high school, there are the people who studied for exams well in advance
Mm-hmm.
and they got an A. And there are people who studied the night before and they got an A. The end result is still an A, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
course, I'm saying A because Asians, you got to get A's, right?
Yeah.
And the people I know, like my husband, who were the procrastinators and studied last minute, were
Mm.
completely fine with it. And their brain actually sort of got mentally prepared to just
Mm.
cram in all this information, and they could quickly retain it without having to repeat it over and over again. Whereas my brain was the kind that I needed to study over time for a
Mm.
test. I couldn't necessarily like cram it in last minute.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine too. So I just don't think that when it comes to those types of things, there's one answer. It's really so specific to you, because I don't think that people who do things last minute, I don't think it's always a problem. It's only a problem if it's a problem for you.
That's great. No, that's a great insight way to say it. I think when it involves other people and I feel like I could have done a better job, that's when I get down on myself. If it's just me in my own circle of whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm going to pull it off, and I do. But how are your girls are they more like Bob or more like you with respect to what you just said about like studying, getting something and just like soaking it in and excelling, or needing, like, I bet you would like rewrite your notes, huh? Are you one of those people that rewrote your notes in high school and college to retain?
No, oh,
No?
maybe. No, I don't think so. I hate writing. I
Oh,
honestly,
really? Okay.
I hate writing. Like I literally,
You hate handwriting.
yeah, which is so funny because I had a calligraphy business for the longest time. But
Yeah,
I
that's my only assumption why I thought maybe you would have liked it with the
yeah,
beautiful
no,
characters.
I
Okay.
hate writing. Like my hand just doesn't work anymore. And so when I write, you can barely read it. But my kids, well, Coco's 5, so she's a little too little to really super be aware of it. But they're both I think they both do want to do good jobs in what they do, and they both want to get things right, which they totally get from us. I mean, you learn things from your parents for sure. Ruby, who's 8, is a little bit more aware of like what she has to do because she has homework and she's in 2nd grade, and 2nd grade really is when homework really gets more intense. And so she's very much like, as soon as she gets home, she needs to get her homework done so she can play and she can relax and have fun. And that's also partially us. We always said, get your homework done and then you can relax. Like, I don't understand, why would you want to come home and like get to watch TV and then have to put that down and go to your homework? That makes no sense. So that's probably something that we also ingrain, like, hey, get the work done and then you can play. Because that's the way that I feel, like, get my work done and then I can play. There's no worse feeling than having to stop playing to go do your homework, right? Yeah. But now she's in 2nd grade. She does her homework mostly by herself and only needs our help when she needs our help. But she's very much like, yeah, I want to get it done so that I can have fun and go play and hang out with my sister who doesn't have homework.
So I have a 4 and 6-year-old, and my 6-year-old is now it's a public school, but it's highly parent participation run. And so interesting, just like something for, 2 cents. They give you a Friday folder of homework. And even in kindergarten, you just have to finish it by Friday. And they want us at this point for the kids to manage their own time. And then, and have a conversation about it if they don't get it done by Friday. So it's up to them. I want him to just do it on Sunday, just like you, like just get it out of the way, right? But he will do it at Thursday, and I have to be okay with that. And so it's interesting. I mean, I'm new at, this older kid going into elementary school, but I think that having 2 kids, I mean, I would imagine just like what they all say, they're completely different, right? So who's more like you, Ruby or?
Oh, Ruby for sure.
Okay. Who was the harder? Because I know that I know you gave me insight that 4 was a lot easier than 2 and 3. So I was like, I got to get to 4 for my girl.
Do you agree?
Sorry?
You agree? Because now that you're
4 is so delightful. I mean, mostly.
Yeah.
2 and 3, yeah. So were they both hard at 2 and 3?
Yes, they're both hard. But my older one, Ruby, was harder, I think, emotionally. She's much more sensitive. She was more like emotionally harder, and Coco was more like physically harder, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
But they were both hard. 2 and 3 was terrible for us. Like basically 2.5 to 4 was terrible. And then 4, you're like, oh my God, I got my kid back.
Yeah. So when that happens and your marriage goes for a loop for that, what kind of advice can you give to my listeners that are moms that are, most likely with young children, like my kids' age and younger? What can you offer us?
About that age period?
Mm-hmm. The marriage part. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit.
Marriage part, okay.
Yeah, marriage part.
Yeah, marriage and parenthood is tricky because prior to these children coming along, you hopefully maybe have some sort of routine, camaraderie, communication style, and then all of a sudden these children come into your life and you're like, what the heck just happened? I mean, some of my husband and I's biggest fights in our marriage have certainly been after kids. A lot of it comes from your kid is acting insane and you need to discipline. And in that moment, you're both reacting to something for the first time because this has never happened or it hasn't happened in this way. And this is the moment where maybe you realize you don't agree about how to handle the situation. And so we've had a lot of things where either I thought he was too tough or he thought I was too soft, or one of us thought we should have handled it this way and the other thought we should handle it this way. But you have different situations where sometimes you're both there. Sometimes one person is there and the other person's in another room and hearing it. And it's sort of like, okay, who is the one to implement the conversation, the discipline, whatever it is? Is it the person who is there currently dealing with it? Is it the person, is it both of you because you're both there? And so there's a lot of things that happen kind of spur of the moment, but what we have done, because sometimes we disagree, like sometimes we disagree in front of our kids and they see us disagreeing about it. And part of me is like, shh, Like, don't let them know that we don't know what we're doing. Um, and so we don't usually take it too far in front of them. It's usually sometimes just like, we also want them to see that it's okay to disagree, and we want them to see us resolve it.
Well, yeah,
It. We
totally.
don't want them to think that their parents are perfect and that we know everything, because we don't. Like, we literally have no idea what we're doing most of the time. But sometimes there'll be things that the other person does that we don't agree with, and we'll save that for later after they've gone to bed or whatever. And it's like, hey, either I think that you didn't handle that quick enough, or I think that you were too hard on her, or I think blah, 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 blah. And we'll talk through it, and we'll kind of talk about it in a way of like, that sort of helps prepare us for next time a little bit better, to know how each person feels and to be on the same page, because that's the whole thing, is like, you have to be on the same page with your partner about discipline. I mean, honestly, it's easy to be like, what do we do when our kids are awesome? Nothing.
Together, nothing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But what do you do when your kids are like
A-holes.
being jerks? Exactly. And that's the harder part. And there's lots of little things. It's when they're not being great, when they're not listening, sleep training, like all the things that are just not easy. So I think it's about having those conversations, because you can try to talk about it before you have kids. It's easy to be like, when we have kids, we're gonna this, but like, and it's good to be roughly like, what kind of parent do you want to be? But you don't really know until you have your child, and your child is their own individual person, and like, how do you handle those two individual people, or however many people?
Yeah. What does discipline look like for the girls?
We are firm but loving, I think, is my answer. It's hard to answer that without getting too intricate, because I also think that we're not the type of parents that let our kids run the show. And not to say that anybody would say that they're the type of parents that let their kids run the show, but it's very easy in certain moments to just be like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Like, I didn't want you to have the second treat, but I'm just going to do it because I'm too tired to argue with you and you're having a temper tantrum or whatever.
Yeah.
We've learned from very early on, the harder thing to do is always a better thing to do. So I think that both my husband and I are both Asian American. And so we also come from like a very traditional background and conservative background. And so not that we do what our parents did, because in some ways our parents didn't have to do as much. Like,
they just look at you, right?
Our parents were just there, like we just like handled ourselves, and it was a different generation. It was a different time, like especially when you're the first generation of kids, because your parents can't speak English that well, and they're not like as involved in school, so it's so different. But like, we've definitely taken, I think, some of the things that we feel like did help us become who we are, but we've also brought them into our modern day American culture of like, our level of involvement is so much higher, and our engagement and the things that we do with our kids on a daily basis is so much different. And not in a good or bad way. It's just our parents were always working. They were very busy. And they had to, and they worked hard so that we could have this life that we have, and we work hard so our kids can have whatever life we can make for them. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, but the whole thing, firm but loving, is my answer. There's a lot more nuances to that, I'm sure, but we make sure that our kids know that we love them, we support them, we want to help them to be the best people they can be, but we are also still the parents in this family.
So more like consequences, or do you old school Asian? They're staring at a corner wall with rice under their knees.
No, we don't do the stare at the wall thing. I mean, I find that I kind of love when I hear people do that, but we don't do that. No, ours is really, I mean, there's a lot of, there's consequences. There might be some bribery. They say don't bribe your kids, but you know what? My kids respond really well to knowing their treat is going to get taken away. That's
a consequence.
Yeah, that's a consequence. And it's just like, I just think like they have to learn. And also, I'm working really hard. My husband's way better at me than this. But I'm working on like not giving so many chances. Sometimes where people will be like, okay, 3 more chances. And now we're just like, nope, I've told you one time. If you do this again, this is getting taken away or whatever that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if the kids get too many chances, then they don't really believe you that you're ever going to take something away.
Yeah, they've said that they look at us like slot machines, and they know they just keep pulling that lever until we break. And at one point, we are going to give that second treat or that second candy. And yeah, I think that's a great reminder that you get to, like what you said, that I didn't get to write it down, but the harder thing to do is usually the right thing to do. So I had some just very casual questions for you, just for you to get your creative juices going, just because I'm not sure people have asked you these kinds of things. But I know you've done Oh Joy for a lot of these different brands and collaborations. But if you were to do an Oh Joy for, totally switching gears here, a fast food chain, who would you want to take on? Would you do Oh Joy for Wiener Schnitzel? Would you do Oh Joy for Taco Bell? Is there anything that you like in a pretend world that, like, you know what would be really fun for them to get a whole new rebrand and a whole new experience?
And it has to be a chain, right?
For fun, it could be whatever you want. I'm just trying to see the creative juices going. An existing common restaurant that is not killing it in their experience branding.
Do you think you're saying they are already killing it or they're not?
They're not. But their food is delicious.
Okay. I think that Taco Bell is doing a great job in their marketing. So I'm not going to say that. Oh man. Okay. So not necessarily a most popular pick, but Wendy's is like a childhood favorite of mine. I love their French fries. I love the specific cut. It's not super skinny like McDonald's, but it's not like a steak fry. They have that Frosty.
Which goes great with fries, by the way.
Great with fries.
Yeah.
Frosty and fries, pretty much what I grew up on in my childhood.
The chili's fresh meat.
Yeah,
did you know that?
I used to have the chili too.
That's fantastic.
I have not had it in a long time, but now you're making me think of the chili.
It's fresh meat. Fresh.
Yes. So Wendy's I always felt like was like an underdog because we all know McDonald's is like everywhere. Here in California, there's Shake Shack, which does not need help branding. They're wonderful. I actually do love Shake Shack. That's probably my favorite fast food place if I had to pick one. But Wendy's, that would be it.
Wendy's, yeah.
But maybe I would just make it so they only sell Frosties and fries. That's all it would be. It would just be like...
You dip the fry in the Frosty too, right?
You know what? I never actually did that. I just had them together separately. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe back then I wasn't into salty sweet, but maybe now I would be.
So so the reason why I have random questions for my interviews, because usually it just goes down a different organic road for conversation. So are you the type that growing up you don't cross your foods over? Like, is it a disaster to have turkey and gravy mesh into the apple pie on the same plate?
No, I'm totally fine with that. So I'm Thai, and when you eat Thai food, there's a lot of saucy things that you put over rice, and then you're using your spoon, your fork, and you're just like, and it just like all mixes together. So I'm fine with that. I don't know why with the Frosty and the fries. I actually don't think I've ever dipped it in, even though I know it's a thing.
It's delicious.
I need to go get one today. What time is it? 10:23.
10:23. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, so this podcast is motherhood, mindset, and mompreneurship, and just an overall background. This derived from me wanting to share the fact that we have one life. Like I know people say that, and my story into getting into Avenue Mama is I lost 7 people 2 years ago in my life. I lost my dad. I lost my father-in-law. I lost my nanny, who's 46. 2 miscarriages after my 2 kids. My mom got cancer. My mom has cancer right now. It came back 2 weeks ago. And I really am under this passion to really have people like, you have to do it. You just can't sit on the sidelines. You can't not pitch yourself. You cannot like let other, like just be a viewer and just be like, oh, Joy's doing this, and oh, someone's doing that, and that's great, and feel like you're doing something. You have to fucking do things, right?
Yeah.
And so I was a pharmacist, and then I got into photography because my son had some medical stuff, And I try to, get that to be the way to compensate for the family, because that's one of my values. And so here we are with Avenue Mama, and we are like a year, 2 years in. And so I think one of the things that I'm so grateful for you to be here, by the way. But one of the things as a mother and someone who's in the space, and I know that you and I have DM'd a long time ago about, being Asian, in the sense that I think a long time ago, I don't even know when, years ago, I said something about like, you should do something with the Asian thing. And you're like, I don't want that to be the front thing that people bring me on stage for, and so forth. However, I just went to, where did I just go? I went to Rise in
Yes, I
South
know.
Carolina, and I could count the number of Asian American women in that room. It's 6,000 people.
I know.
I don't know. My question is, but I guess my thought is, what are people missing in taking action and putting themselves out there and pitching and being their own person that they want to? I mean, I feel like just watching you go from like iteration, and like children's book and all these, all these things that I feel like is on your heart to do. But there's so many people that are just like waiting for permission. What can you give me something that can help that breakthrough? Like, I know you have the answer.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. Real quick, going back to when we first DM'd like a million years ago, and I said that to you about not necessarily wanting that to be like the forefront. I actually have changed from that opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that maybe the way that I said it to you wasn't totally accurate, because I have always been a proud Asian American woman, and I struggled with it. I struggled with looking different my entire life. I struggled with not fitting in my entire life. And so for the longest time, it wasn't something that I was like actively like, yeah, go, I'm Asian, blah, blah, blah. But whereas in my adulthood, I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't feel like I have to blast it out there, because you just look at me and you like, it's not like a surprise, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think what I meant to say was that you're not seeing me like talking about it every single day, because to me, I'm just living my life as an Asian American woman
Mm-hmm.
who has Asian American daughters. There's like just no question, And so, and when I have something to talk about in relation to it, I do. And when I don't, I don't. But it's not at all like it's completely a part of me in every single way.
Yeah.
That being said, I do think that things have gotten a little bit better, but they can still get better in terms of representation. I'm pretty much almost always the only Asian American woman on a panel. I think things have gotten better. And, one thing that I can say is, when you get asked to speak on panels, or if you're an opportunity to be on one, is to also speak up to say, hey, I would love to see more diversity on this panel that you want me to be on. And I'm always very aware of like, am I going to be the only person of color? Because it would be nice for that to not be the case. Okay, so there's that. Now, in terms of going up to one, I think, so the fact that I am Asian American also has been something that I've been very well aware of in terms of my audience. So I don't really know like the breakdown of my audience, but I do know from meeting people in real life that I have a part of my audience that are Asian American women. And it makes sense. You see me, I look the most like you of other people, and people are rooting for me. They're like excited to see me do stuff. They're excited to see me do a creative field. We all know how we were expected to do very traditional. A lot of us were expected to do very traditional jobs, high paying traditional jobs of like doctor, lawyer, pharmacist, all that. And some went that way, and some didn't, and some went that way and wish they didn't, and some are totally happy and content and whatever it is. And so I think that I do represent an Asian American woman who went a creative direction in terms of a creative field, and is still doing it, and showing just that you can do it. And you don't have to be a starving artist. Like, you can actually make a living out of it. And I love that, because I wish I had seen that when I was a kid. I think that I had a hard time telling my parents that I didn't want to be a doctor because I didn't really have a lot of examples to show them. And parents need examples, especially if they're super conservative and traditional. So I agree with you. Like I'm sorry to hear about all of your losses. I mean, I can only imagine how life-changing those are.
Mhm.
And while the ones I've had haven't been as truncated in a short period of time, but I have lost multiple friends that are my age, and friends of my husband. You know, we've had, unfortunately,
I'm sorry.
people pass away of cancer that are our age. I lost my best friend when I was like 23, 24.
Mm.
My parents are still around, thank goodness. But when you lose somebody who is your peer also, there's something weird about that because they're your age and you're like, holy crap, life is so short. Like you don't know right now if you maybe have cancer in your body
Mhm.
that is, you just don't know, that you don't know about yet,
Mm.
or something's gonna happen. And I don't like to live my life like, oh my God, today could be the last day of my life. But I do agree that there's something about, if you are unhappy with something in your life right now, what are the things that you can do to change it? Is it your relationship? Like, is it your marriage? Is it your career? Is it your business? Is it, there are certain things that, sure, no, none of us have perfect days and some days suck, and that's totally going to be the thing. But if there are major things that are causing you unhappiness, there is no better day than today to start figuring out how to change that. And I know it's not so easy because there are things in my life right now that are causing me unhappiness,
Mm.
and they're not super easy things to change. And I'm working on figuring out how to change them. But acknowledging them, I think, is the first step. And then knowing, trying to slowly figure out a path on how to reach it. And for a lot of that, it's also just talking to people who know you and who love you, but who also can be really honest with you too.
Mhm.
Because we have friends in life who are supportive, but they will always just agree with whatever you say, and they think whatever you do is great because they want to be supportive. And those friends are great, but it's also important to have those people in your life who you can tell them something and they're like, yeah, you know what? You could be doing a better job at this, or this isn't your strongest thing. Maybe try this. Like, you need people who also love you so much that they can tell you the truth.
Who's that for you?
It's my husband.
Mm.
I also have a really good friend who used to be my boss at my last job before I started my company. She was my boss. We weren't friends then, but once we were no longer working together, we became friends. And
Mhm.
she's a close friend that I've had for, over 15 years now. And but I think it's because she was my boss and we had that relationship of like constructive criticism and feedback. I'm used to hearing that from her and I can handle it. And then my husband, who's just a matter of fact kind of guy. He's not the kind of person who's like gonna just like tell somebody something if he doesn't mean it, which he means it when he says it.
Mm. Mhm. Do you know what his love language is and what yours is? Do you guys play off that? Or not really?
No, I'm surprisingly not aware of that. I mean, I know what you're talking about, but I don't. Is food the answer? Is there?
No, it's just the most, if for people who do need it, since you talked about like if it's your relationship that's not working, it's just like the most basic tool. If you need something to consider, it's five. There's acts of service, physical touch, words of affirmation, gifts, and quality time. So
Mm,
mine is quality time. That's how I feel my cup is. It's like I see you, I get to spend time with you. I'm good. This is how I want to share my time with you. So when he
yeah.
cancels a date night, the first time I don't say anything. The second time I get upset. The third time I'm like, hey, hey, hey. Right. And his is acts of service, which is I bought the kids another cup that they love. You right. Or I got your favorite coconut water. And I'm like, for me, until I trained myself, to me, I was like, I can get my own coconut water. That's not what I need. I need you to come home so I can
Mm,
hang out with you. Right. But his is continuing that. And for me, the only thing that, not the only thing, but one of the things I was talking to my mom last night about, love and because my parents are arranged, and talk about old school. We're talking old school in every which way. Um, anyway, it was just that may be something that could help support somebody as far as like a toolkit for people who don't have that. Because the other thing I heard recently too is your partner can't be everything, right? They can, and I think for me that's a big realization, because I used to think like I'm such a romantic, like I'm such a hopeless romantic, that I used to think like, oh my God, he needs to be my biggest cheerleader and my sounding board and somebody, and he is not that, right?
Yeah.
And so for people who don't have that sounding board, I think that's one of the things you're saying is to get one, again, another person who's your cheerleader, but also somebody who's going to be lovingly constructive with you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Um,
sure.
I can't see the clock on my end, so I think we have like 10 minutes. Is that right?
It's 10:35.
10:35. Okay, so I told your team that I would love 45 minutes, but I don't know how much they gave you.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's fine. Yeah, we're fine.
okay. Um, and so the other thing, so it was motherhood, which I feel like we got some motherhood stuff from you. Mompreneurship, we got a little bit as far as the Wendy's haul. So what about mindset? What's your morning routine look like as far as tactical things? Can you give us things like, once I started doing this, this helped me be the woman that I am today, as far as getting to live your highest valued life? Anything you do special?
Um, I think that time and being precious and mindful of your time for me has been the biggest help. Like we spoke earlier about being late or whatever. It's not that part of it. It's sort of the idea of giving yourself time to do the things that you want to do for yourself. And that can apply to a few different things. I'll give you a couple examples. So at my office, so I work a very normal day. The OJOY office is 8:30 to 4:30, and I'm pretty much there roughly those hours, sometimes a little bit earlier and leave a little bit earlier. And those are the times my employees work as well. I found that earlier this year, or last year, I think we implemented this. I have 6 employees, which isn't 100 employees, but it's not one employee. And I found that I was having a hard time getting my work done because all day long, people are coming to me. They need my sign off, they need my approval. And it's all things that I have told them I want to be able to approve. So it's not like they're asking me things that they shouldn't be asking me, but it was a lot of just like willy nilly, come in, come out, come in, I need you. Da, 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 da. And it got to the point where like I felt like I was starting something and then I wouldn't have enough time to finish it. And so what we did was we implemented what we call a joy time. And it's 2-hour blocks per day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, that is on the calendar. No calls get scheduled during then, like unless it's like a rare thing that like a rare emergency.
Oh,
And
good. Mm-hmm.
and you technically can't bother me during those 2 hours. Now, if I choose to come to you or if I am needing to talk to you about something, that's fine. But the whole point is to block off that time. And then the rest of the day, I'm available at your service, whatever you need. Now, that was more work related, so that in those 2 hours, I could be working on my own work, because even though part of my job is overseeing everybody, I also have my own work to do as well that only I can do. And the same thing goes for like personal stuff. Like, I think especially when you become a mother, you sacrifice so much for your family and for your children, and you think of yourself last. And I think that we all do that, and it's so normal. But and this is the thing. Everything comes in seasons, and life is an ebb and flow. So there was a time like when my kids were babies and I was nursing that I didn't really go out with friends, or I didn't really take that much time for myself, or I didn't go on work trips. Like I said no to a lot of work trips and opportunities when my kids were nursing, because I was like flying away from a baby and having to either figure out taking them or pumping or whatever was just so much more complicated than it is now. And I knew, there's some day when I will be able to go back to taking these gigs, because number one, they're paid things and I need to spend for my family, but also my kids will not notice me being gone for one day. But also that goes for like, if you want a massage, if you want to go get your nails done, if you, whatever it is that you need for you, the tiniest little thing, it only happens if you block off that time for yourself and if you allow that time for yourself. And so, for example, for me, my time with my kids is so precious, especially on the weekdays, because I'm in the office. I get home at 4:30, and I have for like just basically 3 hours until they are in bed. And so if there are events that I get invited to, if there are work-related networky things that are during that 4:30 to 7:30 time, I pretty much say no to 90% of them. It's not worth it for me to go to something unless it's hugely beneficial or it's for a very good friend of mine during that time, because I'm missing out on my kids' time, my kid time. If that event starts at 7:30 or 8 o'clock and I can leave my house at 7 or 7:30 as soon as my kids go to bed and go to that, great. They have no idea that I've gone, and it doesn't take away any time from them. And so I value that time. I block it off, and that's the situation where I'm valuing that time for my family. But then, are there times that you're valuing for yourself? Like I will use that time to go have dinner with friends. All of my friends know that I won't leave my house until 7 o'clock when my kids have gone to bed for dinners. Now it's easier. They're both older, and they actually love it hanging out with my husband for dinner and me not being there, because then they get to have whatever they want. Like they get so many treats, and they're just like, yay, daddy time. So like they love it, and it's fun for them. So it's a little bit different now, but whatever that is, like blocking off that time, even if that's like you want to start a side hobby, you want to start a side hustle, you want to start something, like you have to block off that time for it. Otherwise it's never going to happen.
And that started with one team member, or the joy time was, when did that happen for you?
Oh, just like last year.
You're like Wednesday.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we've only been doing it for maybe a year.
And what have they done with their days? I don't, I can't think of the name that you called it, but you gave them flexible days to be creative and.
Oh, yes. So I implemented this thing. I'll give you some backstory. So in May, I think it was, of this year, I spoke at Hallmark Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
And I do a lot of keynotes, both at companies and also at conferences. And it was great because I also got to tour Hallmark, which is like an amazing brand and company. And for such a large company, the fact that they can be so great with their employees and have such a creative team is, I think, so rare and also very fascinating. But they do this thing called My 5 Days, where they give their employees an extra 5 days off per year to explore just something, a hobby, something that they want to learn more about. So people use them however they want. Sometimes it's things where they're not at work, and sometimes it's things where they have different workshops and different classes like that Hallmark themselves puts on. And then one of the other speakers does a thing where he gives his employees $500 to go explore something. So it's not about the time, it's more about the money, because a lot of times people don't try something new. Like let's say you want to take a painting class, you might, and if you're on a budget and you're trying to save money, you'd be like, oh, I don't want to use the money for myself to take a painting class. And that painting class is $200. So if your boss gave you $500, you'd be like, oh, sweet, I can go take that painting class. So I like the idea of both of them. 5 days felt like a little bit too much for me. And $500 was like, that's a lot too. But I kind of ended up kind of giving them a little bit of both worlds, and we call it 300. So basically, I give them $300 a year and 3 extra days off to go explore a personal hobby or something they wanted to try, pretty much whatever they want. And yeah, it's been really fun. I make them fill out like a little report. It's pretty easy, but it's just like telling you what they did and how they felt and would they do it again. And it's been a really fun variety of things that people have done. I think it's ranged from comedy classes, what's it called? The thing where you swing on a rope, not skydiving.
Oh, like a Soleil kind of thing?
Yeah, like the circle, yes. Rock climbing, pottery, so many different things. So it's been fun. I mean, it's been fun to live vicariously through them also, if it was something that I've never done, and just to get to hear about their experience.
Who do you get your leadership style from, or did you create it all on your own, or was it the boss that you no longer work for, or was it?
I honestly created on my own. I have had previous bosses, and I think that I've only had two bosses before I got my own company. I started my own company in 2005, and I was pretty young. I was only like 26 or 27, so I had only had two jobs under my belt. So I think that I learned things from those experiences, but I also learned things that I didn't necessarily love about those experiences, um, and took them into creating my own version of what I thought a leader could be. And I've also just evolved over time because it's not all perfect. Like there are certain things that I do that other people don't do. And maybe in some ways that makes it great to work for me, but then maybe in some ways it means I have no idea what I'm doing. But I I also have so many friends who have businesses. Like I have just this amazing group of women who have businesses, some businesses that are much larger than mine. And so they have dealt with a lot more things and will continue to deal with a lot more things than I do. And so it's great to just be able to talk to them about it, about how you handle certain situations or even logistical things like health insurance and IRAs and things like that. Also, my husband is also a leader at his work, and he is in a much different field, but he also has very smart leadership things that he does. And I can't always follow exactly what he does because he is in a different career, a different industry. And whereas I'm a creative industry, he's in the medical industry, but he has dealt with a lot more not the best, he's dealt with a lot more like not fun situations. So it's nice to be able to run things by him too.
Yeah, especially in the corporate medical sector, it gets really interesting because you have, and I don't know if he oversees union folks. Does he see over, or is it all surgeons and medical?
Yeah, he oversees like the medical staff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When I was with Kaiser, I was in management 12 of the 14 years. I had a small staff of 5 to 200, and the ability to unfortunately have to let people go is something that is not, I don't wish that upon anybody.
No,
But
it's
that's amazing. I've just heard great things about you as a leader, as a office, not office, but a boss,
oh,
one of those, as somebody that I have known for a number of years. So she spoke really highly of you as well.
thank
What I have two last questions. One, how would you want your daughters to remember you by? Like if they had to say, if there are things that like, oh, that's my mom. She fill in the blank at this age. Or no, let's, you know what? This is 5 and 8. Let's go. They're 25.
Oh my gosh. Well, now you're just gonna make me cry because I can't imagine my kids being 25.
You know.
It's funny. The other day, so we sometimes do this like role playing thing where
Yeah.
we just like pretend to be one of the other people in our family.
Oh my God.
And we talk like them and we say the things that they like to do. So, we'll all do it for each other. And
Oh my gosh.
my kids will be like, I'm Joy. I work at Oh Joy and da 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 da. And like, but my older one was doing it the other day randomly, like not prompted, just randomly. She was like, my name is Joy Cho, and I have a company called Oh Joy, and I love color so much, but I hate black and white, which is so funny because I'm wearing black. And I do not like the color brown. So don't even show me anything brown. And I just make stuff and I take my employees to Disneyland and I just get to eat boba all day. And it's hilarious because
Yeah.
it's just like,
Aw.
to be honest, that's probably what some of my Instagram followers think that I do, because you don't see the hard, annoying, painful part of my job. But I think for me, it's just, I would just want them to feel like they learned how to create something from nothing. I don't need them to have a business. I would love for them to have a business. But they don't have to. I would be completely content with them being very good at whatever they do and whatever job they do. I just want them to know, like, I want them to know that you do have to work hard for it, though. Like, things just don't get handed to you.
Mhm.
Both my husband and I have worked very hard to get the jobs that we have right now. Um, I don't know. And I think that's really it. Like, I'm a working mom, and, you know, sometimes my older one, because she's in elementary school, and there's like, you know, volunteer stuff, and there's like all these things you can sign up to do. And she's like, Mommy, I wish you would do the lunch, you know, hot lunch sign up. And I was like, I can't do hot lunch because that's like right in the middle of the day. I literally would just miss a whole half day, and you have to commit to it regularly. And I was like, Mommy signs up to do, you know, there are things I sign up to do, but the things I sign up to do are like for a one-time event. And
Yeah,
it's like
yeah, yeah,
things
yeah.
that I'm good at. And it's like, I help out, I make sure I help out in the things I can do. But for me, it's the stuff that I can do in the times that work for me. And right now she might be like, oh, it's, you know, it would be just nice to see you there. And like, you're serving my lunch. And I'm like, yeah, maybe, but I can't do that. And here's the reason. And so right now she doesn't totally understand it, but I know that eventually it will. You just see it. Like, it's the same way with me. Like, my parents worked so hard. They both had businesses, and I said I would never have a business. And then here I am. And you just learn stuff from your parents, and you don't realize that you are, in the same way that you don't realize the way that you are is rubbing off on your children, like whether it's good or bad. Um, but yeah, I think it's just about being able to create like a job that you want.
For her, those are the lasting pieces. Okay, so then would you say the same thing? So you're saying that to Ruby or to Coco, same thing? You would want her to feel the same way, or do you have a special different plan on what you want her to feel from you?
No, I think I want them to both, it's the same. I think it's just so interesting watching them grow up versus the way that I grew up, because number one, they have so many more opportunities just because
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
both my husband and I grew up with, you know, not a lot of money, and our parents working so hard, you know, and we work so hard, but it's a different kind of hard. Um, and so my kids have a lot of opportunities that I also try to make sure that they appreciate, because I want to have spoiled kids. Um, and so I
How,
think,
how can you how are you navigating that? I mean, I have this in front of me, the myth of the spoiled child. Like I'm
oh
looking at that
yeah,
too.
I
Yeah.
mean, and here's the thing, it's this weird thing of like, okay, your parents worked hard so you could have the life that you have. You work hard to to give your kids a better life, and it keeps continuing. And I refuse to have spoiled children. And if there's a minute where a spoiled sentence comes out, or
Right. Entitled.
entitled, like
Ungrateful. Yeah.
shit,
Yeah.
I will stop whatever is happening, and I will put them in check. And, you know, it's hard because you're like, okay, well, it's not their fault if they get to go to the farmer's market and have fresh squeezed orange juice. Whereas, like, we had like whatever the pre-made stuff was.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's about them. You can only do so much at certain ages, right?
Yeah.
Of what they'll understand. But both of my kids are in age now, my older one more so, where we try to make sure they understand the value of money, and that you have to, it doesn't just come, it just doesn't just like fall down from the sky. The reason that her dad and I work is to be able to make money, to be able to pay for all the bare necessities. And if we happen to have a little bit more and we can get like a toy or whatever, like those are all things that we have to work for. And so we've been starting to implement that a little bit with like when she gets like birthday money. We've never had, we've always, sorry, I'm like, there's so many things to talk about with this part, but there's a few different things. So for example,
I have all day. It's
when
just
my
that has the time end.
when my kids have had birthday parties, and not every parent agrees with me on this, but when my parents have had or my kids have had birthday parties, we have not accepted gifts. And it's been something we've done every single year. Now, we can't stop people from bringing gifts. Some friends still bring gifts. but we don't accept gifts because I don't think that my children need 20 or 30 toys in one day. And so that was our way of preventing that, where we ask people to bring a book instead, which we will donate to charity. And so we've done that every year, and we've had our kids go through the books and count them and help us take them to Baby to Baby, which is the charity that we have been providing them for. I also make, I don't know what I'm going to say make, but like I have them involved in volunteer work a couple times a year, especially right before the holidays, because I'm like, okay, you're going to get some Christmas presents, but I need you to know that there are also some kids who don't get to have a lot of Christmas presents. So sometimes we go shopping for other families, or we will pack presents for other families, and like we'll do different things. And more than anything, I think it's just like appreciation. It's like daily appreciation. If I just made you dinner, if I just gave you a snack, you should say thank you. And making sure they say thank you to everybody in their life. The bus driver, the person at the store, the mailman, if you see them, whatever, anybody. Like, you need to say thank you to everybody who is doing something for you, because that's like the smallest way that you can have them appreciate. And it just needs to be like automatic. Like, you do not pass your bus driver and not say thank you to them, because how many people just walk past a bus driver every single day, whether it's a school bus, a public bus, whatever, and nobody says anything to them. If you finish a class, you go to your workout class, you go to your art class, you go to your dance class, you better say thank you to that teacher before you leave, before you go home. And so like that's something that my mom had always taught me when I was younger, and I reinforced that very early with my kids, because they do go to classes and they have ridden the bus and different things. And so I think it starts with small things that you can do when they're little, and then as they get more aware of money, it's about conversations that you have about money, where you don't make it a bad thing, but you also teach them that there's value to it and there's work that comes with it.
The thing that you said about just like the stuff that it sounds like you're taking a lot of the way your parents raised you and how you are raising your daughters. Is that fair? Or would you say 50-50? What percentage would you say is parlayed over?
I think it's like 60-40. I mean, I think there's definitely a bunch of things that my husband and I do from what our parents did, not realizing we did it. I mean, not what they did, not realizing it, but then you all of a sudden start talking like your parents, and you're like, oh my God, I totally am more like my parents than I thought. And then some of it is just stuff where like our parents lived in a different time and grew up in a different time, that it wasn't even anything that they would even have to deal with that we have to deal with now.
Yeah. I think for me, I would say I would take maybe at most 30% of how I was raised. And they're very strict and very, even yesterday, oh my God, my mom was saying some stuff and I was like, so different than the mindset that's available to us now. You know what I mean? Like, I think like the whole, what was it that she was saying? One of the first things she told me to stop reading on personal development, because she's like, you're going crazy and thinking that you could X, Y, or Z, believe this or change this or whatever. And I told her, I said, I am in charge of my own results, of everything that I do. It's on me. I'm 100% responsible 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. Something I got from James Wedmore. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's like my business coach, so to speak, business mindset coach. And it's like, once I put that framework on everything that I do, it's been really like eye-opening. It's 100% my fault. Everything is, and so the last thing I wanted to ask you is, you're saying that there are hard things that's going on, you're not giving any details, but there's hard things. So so say Ruby is absorbing all this stuff that's going on for you. That's the hard, not fun stuff. Okay. What would you tell her? Let's forward. So she's 8. So 32 years from now, you're talking to Ruby and she's like, Mom, I've got all this stuff. What advice could you give her? Because sometimes that could help open new ways of being, so that you could kind of like break through whatever it is that's hard. Well, like knowing what you know about the shit that's going on, or not even shit, but just the, some stuff going on, whatever. What could you tell her? And maybe that would help give you some insight on how to move forward. Because I get a sense that there's stuff that's not easy and not fun and not
Yeah, it's hard because I don't know. I want to always have an answer to your questions, but
No, and you don't. It's no.
I think that one's a little bit layered because it's so specific to different situations. And
Mm,
I also think that not every situation is so easy to like automatically just like unpack and fix. There's some things that take
totally.
time.
Totally.
So I think it's about that. I mean, it's probably not unlike what I said earlier, but I think it's about what's the easiest thing to fix
Mm,
first. What's
mm,
the easiest thing to fix first? And I'm big into that. Like when I have a project to tackle, sometimes I'm like, what's the easiest thing to like just get off the list? Because I just like to get things off my list.
mm.
And if there's a way, because it kind of helps to filter through instead of looking at this huge thing of like this massive situation, like what are some things that you can just like
Mm.
pick off that can help to like reveal more things? So I guess that's my vague sort of answer for you.
Are you gonna take your own advice then? What's the easiest
I'm
thing?
trying. I'm trying.
Yeah, yeah. And that's all we could do. So, thank you so much for your time. Had a whole, I just had things that I wanted to ask you, but I think giving you the space to let me just go whichever way, I appreciate that. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate all that you do and the inspiration that you. It's not even about that. When I look at you, I see me. Yes, there's definitely a part of that, but I also see someone who is completely reiterating and growing. And there's not a lot of people who have your level of audience where you still can talk about the unglamorous parts, which I appreciate. And even just like the way you went dark, like when you're like, I'm not going to just be around because I'm this whole national crisis or whatever situations is too hard, And so I appreciate those kinds of things. I appreciate you showing up. I appreciate you showing us the behind the curtain stuff. Look forward to seeing your house. Hope that's like going the way that it should be going. And of course, renovations are always beast. But if there's anything that our community can do to rally behind you, let us know. I mean, we're just looking, mompreneurs in their very newest stage, and anything upcoming that you want to share that's happening to be on the lookout for?
Well, thank you, Annie, for having me, number one.
Thank you.
There's a bunch of fun things coming in 2020, which is like the weirdest word to say, 2020. You're just like,
Yeah.
sounds too perfect. And also the fact that it's already here. We have 3 kids books coming out this coming year, which I'm very excited about because it's sort of been like a pet passion project for me. And I love them. And they're just like really meaningful and also beautiful. And so I'm excited to
Yeah.
release those. And hopefully we'll have a book party and you should come to that.
I'd love to. And thank you. Okay, so when is your joy time? Is it before this or after this?
I had one before I talked to you, and I'll be one later this afternoon.
Okay, well, awesome. Thank you so much. And tell Courtney, thank you for setting this up as well. Homegirl, your girl emailed me at 7 a.m. So your people are working before
Oh yeah, yeah. Well,
8:30.
she comes in early. She does a modified schedule of like coming early and leaving a little early. But
Gotcha.
yes.
But thank you so much. You have a good holiday season, okay? And take care.
Thanks, Annie. You too.
Bye.
Bye.